and make George the host. Okay, you should be all set. So I'm going to exit now.
Thank you.
If anything comes up, here, let me drop my my cell phone number because I'm at the gym. I'll drop my cell phone number in the chat. If anything comes up, just text me.
Okay.
Right. We don't expect to have any, but whatever.
Well, I wouldn't either, but just in case.
Great, thank you. It's very thoughtful.
All right. Since there are 3 commissioners in the room, I think that we can start, and perhaps by the time I get to the roll call, we'll have picked up a couple more. Good evening, everyone. I'm Christopher Dustin, Chair of the Thompson Inland Wetlands Commission, and I'm calling the March 11th, 2025 meeting of the Commission to order at 7, we'll call it 7 p.m. We're meeting via Zoom, and we'll be following our regular protocol, which means that the meeting is being recorded for audio and visual content and is under the control of a guest Zoom host this evening. For sound quality, the general rule for this meeting is that everyone remains muted except when speaking. Commissioners and staff will remain muted except when speaking or voting, and will generally have their video turned on throughout the meeting. Applicants, their representatives, and the public may leave their video on or off, but are asked to turn their video on when speaking. That said, no one for whom video is not an option will be precluded from speaking at the appropriate time. All participants must state their name for the record each and every time they speak. Please raise your hand either on video physically or by using the raise your hand feature located at the bottom of your screen to let me know that you wish to speak. Please do not speak until I recognize you. If your actual or virtual hand is raised and I fail to see it, which I sometimes do when I'm sharing my screen, you may signal to me verbally that you wish to speak, and I shall recognize you. Members of the general public may only speak during those portions of the meeting set aside on the agenda for citizens' comments. There are 2 such opportunities, one near the beginning and the other toward the end of the meeting. Individual applicants, permittees, and violators whose names appear on the agenda and/or their representatives will be invited to speak when that agenda item is discussed. I must remind everyone that if a member of the general public tries to communicate at a time other than that set aside for citizens' comments, or if anyone in attendance speaks out of turn in a disruptive or inappropriate manner, or for an inordinate length of time, they may be prevented from doing so, and if necessary, ejected from the meeting at my discretion. Those are the preliminaries. I'll now call the roll. Is Commissioner Langer present? I do not see Commissioner Langer in the room. Is Commissioner Morano present?
She's just entering.
She's just entering.
But give her a second to.
Yeah.
I'd go back to her. Fran, are you
Commissioner
muted?
Present.
Thank you. Just in time. Commissioner Obert.
Present.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Present.
Staff members present this evening. I see Margaret Washburn, our Wetlands Enforcement Officer, Gloria Harvey, our Recording Secretary, and Commissioner O'Neill, again, is our Zoom host. We do have a quorum of voting members. The next item on the agenda is the seating of alternates. Commissioner Corso as our alternate member. Commissioner Corso, I think I see that you are present.
Present.
Present, wonderful. Since all regular members of the commission are not present at this meeting, it is necessary to seat alternates. Commissioner Corso is hereby seated. The next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the February 11th, 2025 regular meeting. To facilitate.
Excuse me, I think David Langer is present, so.
Oh, has David joined the meeting?
Right.
Okay.
I am present.
Oh, David, wonderful. Okay, thank you. So how do I do this? Can I, and please don't take this personally, Commissioner Corso. Do I unseat Commissioner?
May I make a suggestion that it's
Yes.
Not dramatic enough to ask him to step aside? He's willing to participate if there's a vote. That's real close. That might be a parliamentary issue, but I don't anticipate a real close vote.
Well, I think it's according pursuant to the bylaws, unseated alternates may participate in discussions, but not vote.
Anyway,
So
anyway,
please stay. And Commissioner Corso, you have a reason to stay. So
Yeah.
Indeed.
so we look forward to hearing from you. David, it's good to see you again. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome back. All right, so the minutes of our last regular meeting. Open the meeting materials here and share my screen.
Oops.
Okay, so this window. Oh. Okay, we're at the wrong end of these documents. I apologize for that. What I want to do is get all the way back to the beginning of these. This way. This is wishful thinking. I've gone straight to the end. Okay. Is that large enough for people to see?
I think we need to enlarge it maybe
Okay.
twice size.
Okay. And for me to do this,
Keep going. More. A little bit more if you want.
we can do that.
Good.
Is that good?
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Do commission members or staff wish to offer any corrections to these minutes? I'll scroll through them. They're long minutes. I applaud the
they
recording.
are. There's 6 pages.
10.
More than that.
10.
But I read through them and didn't see anything that looked wrong. So, but there could have been, punctuation or something. Some of our members have been able to spot those things. I don't recall anything there that was incorrect.
Any other commissioners find any corrections they'd like to make? Well, hearing no corrections, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the February 11th, 2025 regular meeting as submitted.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Thank you, Commissioner Bono.
I'll second the motion.
We have a second from Commissioner O'Neill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All those opposed? Any abstentions? The minutes of the February 11th meeting are accepted and approved as submitted. The next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the February 22nd, 2025 special meeting. Do commissioner members or staff wish to offer any corrections to these minutes? These are only a page long, very succinct.
No changes.
No. Well, hearing no corrections, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the February 22nd special meeting as submitted.
I make a motion that approve.
Motion.
Oh, I got
I
overlapping motion.
But I'll second it. I don't care.
Okay, I'll take Commissioner O'Neill as having made the motion and Commissioner Obert as having seconded it. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? In that case, the minutes of the February 22nd special meeting are accepted and approved as submitted. The next item on the agenda is citizens' comments on agenda items. Please note that this is an opportunity for members of the general public other than applicants, violators, or their representatives to inform the commission of any questions, concerns, or observations relating to specific agenda items. The speaking time is generally limited to 3 minutes. Further discussion of those items by the commission will be reserved for those portions of the meeting specified on the agenda. Are there any comments on agenda items that members of the general public would like to share at this point? Hearing none, we will move on to consider pending applications. These applications were received at our last regular meeting. Since the commission is able to act on these applications, I'm going to remind commissioners of the need to state for the record their reasons for any votes they cast, either in the course of discussion or when votes are actually taken. First up is DEC 25003, Quinnetisset Country Club Incorporated, 241 County Home Road, map 109, block 34, lot 2, harvest a 2-acre plus or minus pine grove beside Reams Pond to produce lumber and protect historic stone cairns, install mulch tubes for sediment controls, pull or grind stumps, construct a new tee box and a walking path to the tee box from an existing cart path. Deciduous trees will remain. Disturbed upland areas will be stabilized with loam and seeding. At this point, I will invite if any of the applicants or their representatives are present, I will invite you to offer any comments you may have. Commissioners will recall that this was the subject of the special meeting, the site walk that was conducted on February 22nd, for which you're now seeing the notes. I'm going to make this a little smaller. I can't see the participant list. Do we have anyone from the country club with us tonight?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Could you identify yourselves perhaps, and if you'd like to share any further comments? You've already talked about this project, and we talked about it with you at the special meeting, but you have an opportunity to say whatever more you have to say this evening.
Sure. This is Dave Marshall. In attendance, we have Rick Dion and Greg McPherson.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for having us, and thanks for the group that came out last month. We're really here to answer any questions. I don't know if Greg or Rick have any comments. I think you have a good understanding of what we are trying to accomplish with that clearing of those pine trees there.
Yes, I have nothing further. I think we've discussed it and pretty good.
Yep. Same here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any questions?
Well, I suppose I'll start, and partly for the record, and also to help us sort through this, because there's more than one thing it seems that you all are trying to do here. So I'm going to do a little chapter and verse from the regulations, just so we can be clear on what it is we need to be considering as a commission. And you all excuse me if you know all of this already, but so I'm going to turn to Section 4 of the regulations, where we hear that operations and uses that are permitted as of right in wetlands, watercourses, and upland review areas include farming, harvesting of crops, which, if I'm not mistaken, includes selective timber harvests. The regulations then go on to state, and believe me, I don't have these memorized, so I'm actually looking at notes, that all activities involving filling, excavation, dredging, clear cutting, grading, and excavation, or any other alteration or use of a wetland or watercourse shall require a permit from the commission, or for regulated activities located in the upland review area, a wetland agent approval. So the operations and uses permitted as of right, as we all know, are non-regulated. They don't require a permit, provided, according to the regulations, that they do not disturb the natural and indigenous character of the wetland or watercourse by removal or deposition of material. Section 4 stipulates that any party proposing a use permitted as of right, or any use of a wetland or watercourse which may disturb the natural and indigenous character of the land, shall provide the commission with sufficient information to enable it to properly determine that the proposed operation is permitted as of right, or that a license is required. So that's and I apologize, it's kind of a long-winded way of posing my question, which is, it seems to me, do we have an accurate enough picture of where the wetland areas begin and end on this site, and which operations, grinding or pulling and filling, will be performed where, in order for the commission to make that determination? So I'd like to start by just putting that question out there. Other commissioners I may have other questions and comments to offer, but I think I'll begin with that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Obert.
thank you for that point. It's an excellent segue. When I looked at the site, I became convinced that the work that they're proposing within the scope of the entire wetlands is pretty insignificant. But you're correct. This is a very rough drawing. My question, what I would like to see either on this or a more correct, more professional drawing, I don't know. These guys have a good plan, but how many stumps would they actually have to grind in order to make sure that there's nothing between the proposed tee and the fairway, where they're going to run with that? Because the less amount of disturbance, the happier I am. If they want to take all those stumps out, I'm not going to oppose the project because of the way that they're situated with the pond. And face it, the pond is man-made, so the water level up there is, yeah, it's within 100 feet, but it's a higher elevation. I wasn't concerned with the work that I understand they want to do. Less disturbance would be better. Maybe we're spoiled. We usually see a landscape architect's drawing or a less complicated drawing so that we can understand better for the record. Does that make sense? I think so.
Thank you, Commissioner Obert. It does make good sense. I want to make sure, are people seeing, I think I'm screen sharing here, but I want to make sure I'm sharing the right screen. Are we all looking at the Pine Grove sketch?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just to be sure. Other questions or comments from commissioners?
Commissioner Justin.
Commissioner O'Neill, please.
Thank you. Having reviewed the materials, participated in the site walk, and having familiar with this, it seems to me that the proposed changes would be consistent with use. And also, if you look at the history of it, I mean, at one point this was just a grove of trees, and it's it's a golf course now, and there are certain practical necessities that have to be brought into play. I think that I would be interested in hearing what Margaret would have, our agent has recommendations to, if any, to change this if needed, as proposed. That's one question I would have. And in concept, it seems perfectly acceptable to me. However, from a technical standpoint, there may be some slight, enhancements or adjustments. So for that, I would ask our agent to offer some observations.
Thank you. Margaret, you're on. How could we proceed with this in a productive but appropriately careful way?
I think that in order to figure out where exactly the stump pulling is going to occur versus the stump grinding, that if the wetlands were delineated by a soil scientist, I would feel a lot more comfortable about issuing an agent approval for pulling the stumps. I think this whole process could unfold in a number of steps, which is you can issue a declaratory ruling for the tree harvest as one step. A second step would be that if I can issue, if they decide to have the wetlands delineated and submit an improved sketch showing the location of the wetlands flags, at that point, I would probably be able to issue an agent approval if they submitted an application for one. And then when it comes to the actual work of grinding stumps in the wetlands, as far as I can tell, I can't have anything to do with that because it's work in the wetlands, and grinding stumps amounts to removing and depositing material in the wetland, which requires a commission permit.
Mhm.
So it's really at least a three phases of permitting once we look at all the different aspects of this project.
Thank-
May I raise a point here? Within
Please,
the last
Commissioner
week,
Oberg.
I saw a new piece of technology coming out of Sweden for stump grinding, but it's like a great big auger and it comes right down from the top and it doesn't rip the whole soil and the system apart, just chews up the roots. Some progressive tree guy in the area might be looking at something like that, but
Hmm.
yeah, I was surprised when I saw it. It's like a pencil sharpener. It just went down.
So Margaret, or Commissioner Dustin,
Yes.
yes, if I could sort of expand or explore our agent's proposal or
Please.
recommendation. So it sounds that as if the activities are not necessarily have to take place concurrently, and they could be done in segments. And I guess I know, having been on the site walk, a concern had to do with disturbing the course, right? Because as the ground, as it warms, you're gonna have softening of the ground and all that. If it's not too late. So it seems that we could do this in phases, and so the applicant can make some progress.
Mhm.
I'm wondering, and it's more of a rhetorical question, is does everything have to happen at the same time, or can you do, one now and do something else next year if needed, that kind of thing?
Could I just chime in?
Please. Can you identify yourself? I can't see you.
Greg McPherson,
Oh, Greg,
I'm the
wonderful.
planning chair at Quinnipiac.
Please.
Yeah, so we as a board, we've approved funding for this to be done in one phase. So based on our initial site visit of walking with Margaret, we marked out which trees needed to be grinded or ground. And we do need to do it in one phase because of the equipment that's coming in to cut the trees is also going to be stumping on the upland side outside of the wetlands. So we had held off after the last month's meeting because of that. So that we could do it all at one time. And I thought that we were already beyond marking out what needed to be ground from our 2 site visits and our erosion control plan. We have erosion control established on the lower side and bordering the wetland as well. That is the dashes on this plan.
Right. Understood. I think we're sympathetic to your situation.
So I don't see that there is a way that we could do this we wouldn't be able to move forward with this project if we had to break it up into phases. It would increase expenses too much.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Oberg.
I'm sensitive to what he's saying about getting it all done at once. And we're already into a point where heavy equipment moving in and off of that golf course is going to be a problem for them.
Mhm.
And they might want to wait until it freezes up next winter, but the degree of, or like an as-built kind of more accurate information. I heard what Margaret said about she feels like she could issue approval if she has more detail on the maps for us. And I think she's right.
Yes.
And these guys want to get this done pretty soon, but they're gonna have interesting golfing challenges around there. Somebody doesn't hit a long drive. It's gonna
Well, I
be,
think oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
it's gonna be wet.
Yes. I think the part of the issue here is that timber harvesting is a use permitted as of right. Ordinarily, a timber harvest is, in this case, it's a selective harvest. You're leaving the deciduous trees, which is a good thing. Involves cutting trees, but grinding and pulling stumps and filling in the holes left by the stumps that are pulled is in or near wetlands is a potentially impactful activity. And we're not even entirely clear on where the wetlands are. So there is, and Margaret, you might want to talk a little bit more about this, about the potential for disturbance on that slope to the right if stumps are pulled, and that area can't be revegetated anytime soon. And so until we have a proper delineation of those wetlands, which we weren't able to make during the site walk, it's not clear which stumps would be ground and which would be pulled and filled. If I'm correct in thinking that the stumps in the wetland would be ground and those in the upland review area would be pulled. It does seem that we need a wetland delineation in this case to make the kind of determination we're supposed to be able to make. Margaret, did you want to add anything to that, or do other commissioners want to share some views?
I guess what we need to explain to the applicants is that all of the work that they're proposing to do cannot be permitted under the declaratory ruling because only the selective timber harvest is a use as of right. And so they're going to, the way I foresee it, they need to have a wetlands delineation and have those flags shown on at least a better drawing to scale. If they then apply for an agent approval, I could approve the pulling of the stumps. Get a good drawing, do another site inspection. So you got phase one of having the declaratory ruling to do the timber harvest. Phase two, well, the next step would be having the delineation done. The third step would be submitting an application for a wetlands agent approval so that I can approve the timber harvest. I'm sorry, approve the pulling of the stumps,
right,
knowing where the edge of the wetland is at that point. And then a third layer of their permitting would have to be applying for commission approval for the work in the wetlands. And at that point, the commission might be comfortable with a drawing, or they might require a site plan. And I think Charlie's question about how many stumps would be ground in the wetlands could be shown on that drawing. And so I cannot approve any work in the wetlands through the agent approval. So unfortunately, when this project started out, we didn't understand exactly what level of permitting was going to be required, and it turns out to need more than one application unless they were to, the declaratory ruling takes care of the trees. They've already paid for that application. So that part of the permitting could be done if the commission approves the timber harvest tonight. But the rest of the permitting would take probably too much time for them to have the ground still frozen by the time they got approval, because the commission cannot act on an application the first night they receive it. It has to go to the next regular scheduled meeting. So they could do the stepwise permitting and be ready to do the harvest when the ground freezes next year. Which is something they mentioned at the meeting, at our site walk, was the possibility of doing it next year.
Right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Obert.
you'll recall a few minutes ago, I used the phrase like an as-built drawing. If I were to walk out there with the photographs that I have on my phone, I could point to each stump that I expected they were going to grind and where they were in relationship to the wetlands. And I wasn't worried when I walked away. I thought that it was a minimal disturbance. But my memory is not admissible in a court of law necessarily. And, you know, we probably won't ever be called on this, but we have to keep the pattern. We have to do things the right way for the sake of the members of the golf club as well.
Right.
We're doing this to try to keep it right, and so I'm fortunate that we've moved away from the handshake day. We can't just say, "Oh yeah, then go ahead and do that." We have to make sure that we have all bases covered right. So
Yes. Well, I think that our enforcement officer is putting it concisely. I mean, our hands are tied from a regulatory point of view here. All we can approve by way of a declaratory ruling is the timber harvest. That further work that is proposed in and near the wetlands would require, in one case, a wetlands agent approval for work in the upland review area, and for the stumps that are to be ground in the wetlands, that would require an inland wetlands approval that would require that the commission issue a permit.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Morano.
Is there any reason that we couldn't ask them just to submit for one permit that would cover all of these things? That way they're paying one fee, and then it could be scheduled in the increments that are appropriate. So they get the wetlands delineated and present a wetlands permit for everything that they want to do, and then have it scheduled when they're going to do what.
There is no reason why they could not do that I know of. And Margaret, you can correct me if I'm wrong. That would make things easier and more straightforward.
They've already paid for one permit, which can be taken care of tonight. Beyond that point, they could just apply for a commission approval, and I can defer my wetland, what could have been covered under the wetland agent approval to the commission, and so it would just be a declaratory ruling and a commission approval, and keep the agent approval out of it. That's absolutely.
Right. The wetland agent approval, in theory and perhaps in practice, that could move through more quickly depending on when the wetlands were delineated, because that's something that the enforcement officer can take care of in consultation with me as the chair of the commission. The further work, in the wetlands, the grinding of the stumps, that would require commission approval.
This is Rick Dion.
Rick, yes, please, thank you.
I've been working with Margaret since the beginning.
Yeah.
What I'm confused about is I thought we were dealing with the Wetlands Commission at this point. Is there a different commission that we need to go to get this approval?
No, you're in exactly the right place. It's the difference between a declaratory ruling, which would allow you as of right to conduct a timber harvest as it would anyone else, a selective timber harvest. But in this case, you're proposing a little more than that. So it's a further step in the permitting process, is that you would to do work, this kind of work in the upland review area near the wetlands, you would need at least a wetlands agent approval. And in order to do the work in the wetlands, the grinding of the stumps, you would need the commission to issue a permit. But that would require an application, which would include a site plan that would include a wetlands delineation.
So who is
and a clearer indication of which stumps were ground and which stumps were pulled, of what was where in relation to wetlands, which we some commissioners seem to feel we don't have yet.
I'm just
So-
this. Oh, sorry, Rick.
No, what I'm thinking is, we all walked in that area and it seemed like everybody was in agreement where the wetlands was. So you're saying that we need to get a separate agency or company to come in and say, yeah, these are really wetlands, or you don't know where the wetlands are, or we don't know where the wetlands are.
Delineated.
I'm not sure. I know Greg has done more of this with his business, but
Right.
as a layman, I'm thinking, we all sat there and said, yeah, that's pretty obvious that that's the wetlands.
What's
And
confusing?
we went through the whole process with Margaret and actually X'd out trees that we all felt were in the wetlands, including Margaret, and said, these are gonna be ground and these are not gonna be ground. So what do we need to get is there another company, another agency, or is it someone in your agency that's gonna come and mark out the wetlands?
Margaret, can you explain? You could explain better than
Yeah.
I.
Right,
or
I
perhaps
can't
Commissioner.
work for the applicants because that would represent a conflict of interest. But we can give you a list of soil scientists who are qualified in Connecticut. It has to be a soil scientist to delineate wetlands. And
Okay.
you can
Yeah.
hire them to come out and hang a series of flags between the upland and the wetland. And you see, what happened is your project's a little bit complicated when we sit down and look at it from the regulatory standpoint, in that it's not something that can all be covered under one blanket permit application. Typically, the only permit used to issue the timber harvest is the one you've already applied for. So that is pretty much a given that you will get that, and you've already paid for it. But to get permission to do the work in the wetlands, you need to apply for at least one other permit, and that is a commission approval. If you wanted to do it in a stepwise fashion, as with your permitting, it's an option that you can ask, you could apply for two permits, which one would be the agent approval to do the stump pulling and smoothing out those holes, the work that's not in the wetlands. That we'd still need a delineation in order to figure out what the agent could approve versus what the commission could approve. But if you wanted to take Commissioner Moreno's suggestion and just apply for a second one, aside from the declaratory ruling, one commission approval application would work. And we apologize if it all seems convoluted, because if you're not familiar with the regulations, I can understand why you're scratching your head.
Well, I think that this is Greg McPherson. I think what is confusing to us is over the 3 months, our plan hasn't changed at all. We've walked the site with Margaret twice and the committee once. While on the last committee meeting, it was brought up, or site visit, it was brought up if we needed to delineate the wetlands or not. And the site visit group as a whole didn't feel that it was needed to, especially with our added erosion control on the upland side and on the wetland side. And that seemed to be a consensus okay with everybody that was on site that day. And now it seems like everything's just kind of like our plan hasn't changed, but it seems like the process, well, I don't know why we weren't guided this direction in the beginning.
I could
Mr.
just
Chair.
mention one thing in response and then let the commission members speak. But the commission's not allowed to make decisions at site inspections.
Exactly.
And Commissioner Obert actually asked the question at the site walk whether you had considered having the wetlands delineated. And so the commission never made any statement at the site walk saying that a delineation wasn't needed, because that would be illegal.
I didn't say that it wasn't needed, but when that was brought up, that is when we added this additional erosion control on the upland and on the wetland side. In the prior to that site meeting and prior to Commissioner Obert bringing that up, we only had one row of erosion control brought up. So that was what was put in with where we had all the trees marked as well to be ground.
If I may,
Please,
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman
Obert, yes.
and applicant, it's one of those funny little loopholes that lawyers find all sorts of billable hours in. and we can't afford to make a mistake. When we were out there, when we looked at it, and I'm on the record, I've said it, I walked away from there feeling like you guys were going to do a project that was not going to have a significant impact on the wetlands. However, what has been said by 3 different people tonight from different directions is we need the documentation. We need to be able to show that we approved a plan for a country club to go into a wetland and do some modifications that disturb the soil, and the drawing or the steps were not followed correctly.
Yeah, I
Can't-
guess our confusion is, we have been in working with Margaret through each step of this.
Yet you still haven't really provided the kind of detail that the
Right.
regulations demand that
Which we
approve.
certainly would have done right away had we known that we needed to.
I think they're doing their best. This is
That's,
true.
that's,
I
that's the
believe they're
frustrating.
trying to do their best. They're trying to get this job done, and they're going to have minimal impact on the wetlands. I believe all that stuff.
We could have had it delineated already had we known. I know I have wetland biologists that I work with as well that I could have had out there a month ago had I known.
Well, these are resources that were at your fingertips and that they were
Yeah,
not
we had
used.
asked.
That's not mine.
So
That's not on me. I'm looking at this. I looked at the site. I know that we have regulatory requirements, and I defer to Margaret and to the chair for those. I just know what I know about what I believe I know about the wetlands and your project.
May I say something?
please, Margaret, thank you.
What's unfortunate is in the timing of this whole thing is that at the very first meeting, the commission couldn't act on it because they're not allowed by law at the night that the application is received. So they couldn't make any decisions that night. Then at the sidewalk, they're not allowed to make any decisions by law. So
Mhm.
they weren't able to give you any feedback because it's against the regulations. They're not allowed to make decisions at sidewalks. It has to wait until the following meeting. And so this is their first opportunity to discuss the process. And so I know that you were hoping to get started because the ground froze, but if you had applied a few months earlier, it could have unfolded this winter, but because it seems like the weather's changing now, it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, no,
So-
guys,
so
we're not
that's-
doing it until next winter. So let's
Right,
just get
right,
that on the record. We have no intent to do it after last month's. I said in the meeting in February that if we don't get approval, then we won't be doing it until winter. So we're not doing it until winter. I guess our confusion is why from the beginning we weren't told to delineate the wetlands and have a site plan. Because
Well-
we were under the impression that this was adequate, and we do realize that, yeah, it's drawn on paper. But we have surveyors at the course that had we known, we would have certainly done it. We clearly are trying to do everything the right way.
One other thing is that because the ground is frozen, no soil scientist I know has been able to delineate any wetlands for several weeks. All the work is ground to a halt. The ground is as hard as a rock, and we need to auger down to 18 inches in general or 24 inches to see the soil. So that's along with it being good for cutting trees and driving on the golf course. The ground freezing kind of makes it impossible to delineate wetlands in Connecticut because it's all based on soil.
Yeah, thank you, Margaret.
Okay, so this is Rick Dion again.
Thank you, Rick.
So
Thanks.
again, where this whole project has, pardon the pun, ground to a halt. But what we want to do is get this, I guess, once we get the permit, it's 5 years, right? We have the permit for?
Yes.
So tell us, if you could just tell us tonight what we need to do, what the easiest way, doesn't have to be quick anymore. It's just the easiest way and the best way to get this resolved and approved. And it sounds like one of the steps is to get somebody in there to do delineation, which it sounds like Greg has some people that can do that. So we do that. We give you, do you need a, you can't take my cartoon drawing anymore. You want something a little bit more professional?
Yeah.
Once
So-
it's the delineation?
My comment about that perhaps was a little ill thought. We occasionally see drawings like that from a private homeowner. But if they're going to be going into the wetlands, you know, they know that they've got a responsibility and they document it.
Yeah. No, I Commissioner Obert, I would be even stronger, I think, there. I don't know if this will help the applicants and I feel sorry for their frustration, but so part of what has become clearer to the commissioner, I'll speak for myself, is this is not a large project, but it's a more complicated one than it seemed to be at first. And something that an impression I came away with from the site walk was that some of the stumps that were marked to be pulled are actually very close to the edge of the pond and to the wetlands, and that raised some concern on my part. So I think, to go back to Commissioner Obert's point, I mean, we have to be even-handed here. Were this a developer who were bringing this proposal to us, or even a private homeowner, we would need the wetlands to be more clearly delineated and the upland review area to be clearly marked so that we understood what was going to happen where, so that we could issue the appropriate approvals. So some of this is in the interest of fairness. I don't know if that helps. To go back, Rick, to your point, it seems, and Margaret, you may be better at this, if were we to issue the declaratory ruling tonight, that how long is that valid for?
The permits are good for 5 years and you can ask for an extension for another 5 years.
Okay, so they've paid for that. They would have that in hand, and then they could come back when the conditions were right, and, to take Commissioner Morano's suggestion, apply for an inland wetland approval to cover all of the remaining work, the work in the upland review area, as well as the work in the wetlands, the pulling and the grinding of stumps.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Can
Commissioner
this
Obert.
application be put on hold and then they can update it and we can review it before they get around to actually doing the work?
They could, or we could issue the declaratory ruling tonight, and they could, when the ground
Well,
was.
if we issue a declaratory ruling, we have to know where the wetlands are.
We
we
don't for the declaratory ruling. I don't think, Margaret, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but
No.
that would be the selective
That
timber,
goes for 5 years.
which
That's a
is,
permit.
A timber harvest, selective timber harvest, is a use as of right. That
Exactly.
I would encourage the commission to approve that tonight, so they have that part of the permitting done. And then since Mr. McPherson has said that he's going to wait until next winter to do the rest of the work, that they have all the months in between then and next winter to get the delineation done and get the site plan and apply for the inland wetlands permit and get that in place, and then they can be ready in good time for the next freeze up.
This gets to the point about documentation for what was said. I drove by there today and I was surprised that the pine trees were still there. I was under the impression they were going to get rid of the pine trees and then get the permit, as we've just talked about.
The problem was that it was too costly to get the machinery in there, pull it back out, and then pull it back in when we get the, so we made
They're
the
different
decision as a.
machines, but
No,
Yeah.
actually, it's the same machine doing the
Yes, it's
harvest.
the same.
okay.
Yeah.
And you're talking 100-something stumps sticking out of the ground until next winter if we were to do that. And
Yeah. I see that. I
We'd
see
have a
that when you
membership
say
in
it that
Uproar.
way.
Right, we were
Yeah,
worried
so-
about We were worried
So-
about the pond getting contaminated that way too, so.
So because of the complications of grinding the stumps, we don't have an urgent thing. They really won't be able to get the machines back there. They want to take them in once. They won't be able to get them back there before the ground is too soft.
Unless we have a.
And we have plenty of time to
Some-
make sure that we have everything correct.
Yeah, we have no problem getting it correct. I guess it's just we would have done it this way from the beginning if we knew. So we have
Yeah.
no problem getting it delineated, getting a site plan and applying. We thought that this is what we had to do. This is how we've been brought along. So we can definitely get that done. We might do it this summer. So I wouldn't say that we're gonna wait until winter.
Right.
If we have summer like last year, then sure, we can get in there with any
Oh,
excess.
yeah, real dry summer. Yeah, it could happen.
So I don't wanna put that out there that we're just waiting till next year, because that very much is not the case. We wanna get this
No,
done.
that,
if we can.
that's why I think I would follow Margaret's recommendation and encourage us to act on the declaratory ruling tonight. And on the rest of it, as soon as it's feasible for you to come forward with a more detailed delineation and stabilization plan.
I can send the applicants the permit application form to help them understand what it is they're looking at, and I can give them a list of soil scientists who've done work in the area recently. Connecticut's the only state where you're required to be a soil scientist, so it's a little bit different from Rhode Island or Massachusetts. So, and I apologize for the delay in being able to give you the guidance that you needed, because I needed to hear from the commission on it, and they weren't allowed to give me their opinions until this meeting tonight, in accordance with the statutes.
Is there any more discussion from commissioners? Any further comments or questions on this? I think a lot of important points have been made.
As a staff member, I've got one thing to say if no commissioners do.
Please.
I sent Commissioner Langer an email today about him not being present at the previous meeting or at the site walk, and I was wondering if he had a chance to read that.
Margaret, I did get the emails late today. I did not have a chance to read it, so I would not be able to vote.
Okay, what I was suggesting to Commissioner Langer was that if he did want to vote on this tonight, he would have had to have made himself familiar with the previous minutes and so forth, and so
Yes.
that was the answer to the question I was wondering about. Thank you.
Right. Yes, thank you for covering that point. I suppose then at this point, I will entertain a motion to approve DEC 25003 to include only the timber harvest, that is selective timber harvest as proposed. And I understand, Margaret, from what you said, that you will follow up with the applicants and indicate that to them just what it is that is permitted at this stage and what more would we need in order to act on the rest of what they propose to do. If that
That's right, and I'd just like to add that when everyone's voting tonight, that they're required to state why they're voting the way they are for the record.
I'll be willing to make the motion to approve the declaratory ruling for the timber harvest.
Thank you, Commissioner Morano. Do I have a second on that?
Commissioner O'Neill, second.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. So I think what I will do in light of
Discussion?
discussion, thank you.
Yes, I think it's.
So perhaps this is, if I may jump in, rather than polling the commission, this would be an opportunity for each commissioner who is in a position to cast a vote to indicate their reasons for their vote.
I made the motion because I think it's a prudent way to initiate the project and give them the opportunity to gain some traction on it while the other things are taken care of.
Thank you, Commissioner Morano.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Obert.
we're being asked to approve application DEC 25003.
Yes.
On the bottom of that page, it says harvest pine grove to provide lumber, which is fine because we were told that all we were approving was that, but it says and stump grinding,
That would not be approved
but that's the paperwork.
under this rule.
That's the paperwork. I'm curious. I thought that because of the ground shifting and because of the desire to bring the machinery in only once, the sense of urgency was off. Am I correct?
Well, I think we've been informed that we can't assume that this work will be put off until next winter.
I can
And-
understand that, but we don't expect it to be done in the next 30 days. Am I correct?
No, but we can act on this application and approve it or not. And that would then be in place and the applicants could move on with the remaining permits and approvals.
Isn't it possible for an agent to approve the timber harvest as an agent's approval?
I would
It's-
defer to the commission on this, and I think what you should do, honestly, is make it clear. I think Charlie, Commissioner Obert is raising a very valid point that on this forum, they listed work beyond what's allowable under a declaratory ruling, and so I think that the commission could refine perhaps the motion to approve only the selective timber harvest under the declaratory ruling and make it clear in the motion that the remaining work, including pulling stumps, filling in pulls from the stumps, building the trail, and the proposed tee and the grinding of the stumps all have to be handled under a separate application.
I agree with what was just said. And my biggest concern at this moment is the documentation. We've just shared with our applicants and with the community at large that it's important that we document things correctly. And so far, we've been right. As long as I've been on the commission, we've been right. And I don't recall anything before I joined the commission. So we're just doing due diligence. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. I really am concerned for both the environment and the prosperity of the community, and I'd like this project to move forward, but we need to document it correctly. And this document, this page on the that we were all availed of tonight, page 15 of 211 says, and stump grinding. And so if we can, you know, it's on tape. Yeah, we're saying it, we can agree to it. If we can agree to those things, I already had the impression they were going to back off and make sure that they did it the correct way. So that's my advice, do it the correct way. And that's my debate.
Thank you, Commissioner Obert. Commissioner O'Neill?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to see a method, a path forward so that to the extent possible, the applicant can make some progress and those things that have to be deferred. I thought we had a path to do that. And I'm not sure, based on the discussion, whether it's a modified application or an approval, a partial approval of the DEC 25003. So that's where I'm trying to mend my recommendations. But conceptually, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's a question of timing and some level of granularity here. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Margaret, are you able to stipulate in issuing the approval that the approval covers the timber harvest and only the timber harvest?
Well, Commissioner Obert raised an interesting point, and it's my understanding that no conditions can be put on a declaratory ruling. And so since these folks are, and I'm sorry that things, we got to this point with this form, but like I said before, the commission couldn't have this discussion until tonight by statute. Maybe submitting a revised declaratory ruling form that states only the selective timber harvest is what they're asking for. Could be a revised application could be submitted, and since it's a modification of a declaratory ruling permit, like we've seen in the past, it could be, I believe it could be approved at the following meeting without the having to wait, because it's just will be modified and not a brand new application.
Chair,
So
Uh,
the
Yeah,
question.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Greg?
Chair, is there a possibility we could have a special meeting to, given the situation, and the timing and the, climate? Is there, I see Margaret doesn't agree, but I was curious, is there any other alternative, to help advance this process? Rather than waiting another month is what I'm getting at.
If I may,
Yeah, Commissioner Obert.
I believe that I heard that we easily can allow the agent to declare for timber harvest at any time.
Mhm.
They could do the timber harvest next week if we approve that. But any work about removing the stumps and putting in the T and putting in the extended path all have to come in under an application because that's what the regulations require.
Mm.
So if that meets with the requirements of the applicant, then we should do that. But the paperwork has to say that. So maybe we need to have a new, can we have DEC 25003.A? I mean, it's all part of the same thing, but 3.A would be the work that comes afterwards. I don't know. There's got to be some way that we can document that we're doing it and that we're doing it right.
Margaret, to go back to Commissioner Obert's a point I think he raised, are you able to, I know you wanted to defer to the commission on this, and I understand why, but is the declaratory ruling something you could issue yourself if it were presented in a modified form? Because it would require no further discussion.
Yes.
Good.
So perhaps then we're walking this back a little bit, but if the applicants were to provide a modified application for a declaratory ruling for a selective timber harvest, you could approve that.
Yes.
Without our needing to have a special meeting.
Or without waiting till the next meeting.
Without waiting, more importantly, till the next meeting.
And
A point, I think that if the applicant were able to be present and to physically mark that form that we have and say, no stump grinding and initial it, they can use the same number.
I will defer to Margaret on that one.
I don't understand what he's asking.
I think the question has come down to, do we approve DEC 25003, but in issuing the approval, you stipulate that what is approved is the selective timber harvest only, and none of the rest of the proposed work? Or is it more prudent it would take a little bit of time, but not much, to ask for a modified application for a declaratory ruling that included only the timber harvest, which you could then approve in short order?
I think it would be cleaner to do it with the modified application form.
The latter. Okay.
Right.
I was trying to save them some money in application fees.
There wouldn't be any more fees.
You know, the
no more
making
fees.
it right is more important.
No more fees.
No
All
extra
right.
fees to come in with just to cross out, to white out the parts about the take off everything except the timber harvest.
Okay. So I'm going to ask for a little help here on parliamentary grounds. Do we need to withdraw a motion? And do we need do we need a motion at all? Do we need a motion to request a modified application for declaratory ruling?
Mr.
I
Chair,
would
Yes,
suggest
yes,
asking
Commissioner
the
Morano.
applicants to agree to it.
I think that if the declaratory ruling application included the stump grinding, then the motion I made would have to be modified. If that's not something that can be done until an a real application has been submitted and a wetland delineation has been completed.
So could you modify your motion?
I could make a friendly amendment.
Well, we
I
can do
think
this
that's in
either way.
Robert's rules. I don't know if can she amend it? She could, I suppose. I'd make a friendly amendment that as long as the application DEC 25003 is modified to remove the stump grinding in the wetlands or the upland review area, that it would be approved.
Okay. Do I have a second on that motion?
Commissioner O'Neill, second.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. Discussion. No discussion, then I will call for the vote.
The discussion should include, or at some point before the vote is said and done, we need people to state the reason why they're voting the way they are for the record, please.
I think Commissioner Morano has stated her reasons. I think Commissioner Obert has. Commissioner O'Neill, do you feel that you stated your reasons?
Yeah, I did, and I concur with the other commissioners and on their, I don't have to restate it, but I incorporate by reference the prior statements of my fellow commissioners.
And I will state my reasons, and they are that that the selective timber harvest is all that we are able to approve under a declaratory ruling. However, the application for the declaratory ruling that we have before us indicates further proposed work which would not be approved under this ruling. And so it makes sense to request a modified application for declaratory ruling that includes only the selective timber harvest. The understanding being that the remainder of the proposed work would be subject to further approvals, either wetlands agent approval or an inland wetlands approval, which would require further applications, which the commission certainly invites and looks forward to considering. That wasn't altogether brief. Commissioner, who else is voted? Commissioner
Langer?
Langer, are you going to cast a vote on this?
No,
or
I'm not casting a vote on this. No.
You're going to
Was
abstain?
Greg with us out at the sidewalk? I think he was.
He was, yes.
Yes, I was.
And
Greg isn't-
certainly he's seated, so he's certainly qualified.
Well, I think he was unseated.
I am no
Oh,
longer
wow.
seated.
He's no longer, because we have all regular members are present, one of whom will abstain from the vote. But it's nonetheless participating in the voting process. So I think we can go ahead and call the vote. All those in favor of this motion?
Aye.
And
Aye.
any opposed? Any abstentions? Commissioner Langer, are you abstaining or?
Yes, abstaining.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted that for the record. In that case, the motion passes. The motion has been read into the record. I briefly summarize it is the DEC 25003 has been, I suppose, approved, but in a modified with the understanding that a modified version of this application will be submitted. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Is that a good way to put it? It's not
Modified scope, yeah.
and tactically it works to my satisfaction, but I just want to be clear that we're not placing conditions on a declaratory ruling, which we're not able to do. All right. Thank you all for that that very thorough consideration of this application. Moving on to the next pending application, it's DEC 25004, Greg and Lauren Corso, 0 Lowell Davis Road, map 118, block 29, lot 25A, thin forest stand to release and encourage regeneration of desirable tree species. I believe the applicant is in attendance.
I am, and I will make a similar comment to last week, speaking on behalf of myself and my family as the landowner here. Certainly not as a commission member.
Did you have any further?
I have no further discussions. I think we
No
covered
further discussion.
it
Okay.
in the last meeting. If anybody has questions, though, I'm more than happy to entertain.
Here we go. I wanted to put.
I'm curious, how are
on.
they gonna get in there to get the logs out?
The logs will not be moved. They will be staying on site to form natural habitat improvements for wildlife.
So you're just gonna go in and cut down trees? You're not gonna harvest?
No material will be removed from the site.
Wow.
He's thinning.
Well, that answers the question.
And Greg, to be clear, is the open wetlands are in, is it area 4 here?
That is forested wetland, but there
Okay.
are areas that would likely be delineated in wetland on the eastern border, close to where the 3 is on this
Oh, here.
map. That red,
Up.
the
Up here.
top
Yes.
3.
Yes. Yeah.
So those red
And from there
lines
due
there,
east, that's all wet.
yeah, those
Due
red lines
east.
there indicate areas that are likely wet, and I think there probably is another map in there that indicates that as well. All that being said, we aren't working in those areas,
Nope.
and all the cutting will be taking place outside of those areas.
Now, I have another question from your paperwork that you submitted. You talked about establishing trails
There will be
and invasive
footpaths.
plants.
Footpaths will be created just for access, so we won't be doing any sort of construction or excavation in the area. Just making means of access for the 2 or 3 of us that will be doing the work. Invasive plant control is already underway and is mostly completed in the stand.
Oh,
Do you understand that if there's a path that goes down to the airline trail, you're probably going to get a lot of mountain bikers up there? Bicyclists, but who knows what else?
The land that leads to the airline trail is not our property and will not be improved or impacted in any way.
So you can get in to do your tree felling without touching the airline trail, then okay, that keeps it quiet.
Just walking in by foot.
Uh-huh.
other commissioners have further questions or comments on this application? If not, then I will entertain a motion to approve DEC 25004.
I'll make a motion to approve DEC 25004.
Thank you, Commissioner Morano. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second the motion, Commissioner
Thank you,
O'Neill.
Commissioner O'Neill, and since you're seconding, do you want to be first to tell us what your reasons for supporting the application are?
Yes, sure. The proposed application certainly has benefits to the land and the habitat based on the proposal, and given the way they're going to leave the cut timber in place, so your brush piles are great, and seems a positive use of thinning as detailed in their application.
Thank you. Commissioner Morano, can you state your reasons for making the motion in the first place?
Yes, I'm enthusiastic to hear that they're taking care of invasives as well as creating wildlife habitat and keeping, neglected trees can easily become a problem, and so they're taking care of it.
Thank you. Commissioner Langer, you would want to join in the discussion?
Yes, I agree that maintaining forestry areas, good habitat. I grew up in this area right across the street, so it's great to see an area that's being maintained rather than cleared. So, good
Thank
work.
you. And I will say only that I concur with my fellow commissioners. I see absolutely no potentially adverse impacts here. And on the contrary, I see some impressive environmental benefits that would derive from it. I think I found the plan to be very well thought out and encouraging somehow. In that case, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. DEC 25004 is approved. Thank you. This brings us to new applications. These are applications that are received at this meeting. Beginning with MOD 25004, David Mello. And Mr. Mello, you are here, and you will, when I invite you to speak, tell me if I'm mispronouncing your name, whether it's Mello or Mallow. 17 Bacola Road, map 116, block 24, lot 20, a request to remove 2 trees at the edge of Little Pond. And I will bring up our the site plan for this. There we go. Mr. Mello, are you here? Would you like to make a statement or offer some comments?
Yes. Good evening, everybody.
Welcome.
And
And am I pronouncing your name correctly?
it's Melo. So yeah,
Melo,
you're
okay.
you're very close.
Okay.
So no objections there.
All right, thank you.
So yeah, I appreciate the work and the diligent work, first of all, that I've dealt with Margaret so far, getting our project to this level. And originally, I will state for the record that we had no real plans to do anything with the 2 trees at the edge of the shoreline. However, upon further look of all of the work and the experts that I have had in the land, stating our engineer, Daniel Blanchett of Thompson, had also written a letter which was not able to be submitted. It doesn't appear. I don't think you guys have this.
We do.
Okay, you do have the
actually.
letter from him. Okay.
I will have to do a little fancy footwork to bring that up.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I can read it too if you want, but yeah.
Okay.
So after further review, it has been posed that is a potential for a worsening of the environment as far as if that tree naturally falls in, because it is more than a 45-degree angle leaning onto the lake itself. So if you can read, I can bring up and read exactly what he wrote in his form here. Sorry, hold on one second here. Okay,
You
you
got
have
it right there.
Yeah. Okay. So that we, in no shape or form, are we trying to just remove the trees and not put anything back for environmental. There is both safety and aesthetics, as he mentions in there, concerns from us as the landowners and our project. A lot of that tree is unsafe, and I don't. I really would like that tree to be removed. So I've been trying to do the right thing by asking you guys for the approval for that. So as you can read this here, I won't read it, but if you look at the picture, my comment, if you scroll down there, I mean, that is well leaning, and if you can't really see by the picture because that other tree is in the way, but those roots are actually gonna start coming up anytime. And it's just going to fall right into the lake, which then at that point is going to require a lot more heavy machinery to pull it out of the lake, rather than what we could do right now to save that and also be able to, please the landowners for the aesthetics. As far as the other standing tree that is in the way, you can also see in the write-up from Daniel Blanchette that we are undecided if we are going to do anything with that tree, but it was brought to the commission's attention for approval if we decide to do that. We haven't made any decision, and I mean me and my wife, as far as that goes.
And this, as I understand it, this is there's a landscape plan that Mr. Blanchette has furnished along with this.
Correct, yes.
And I think I will now bring up the revised. Sorry, it's in a different.
No, that's fine. It's
Right.
my drawing that I submitted to Margaret was like a 3-year-old child's drawing, so I decided to have it professionally
I feel
detailed.
like a 3-year-old child when I'm doing this. Okay, so now I can go back to here and share and do this and do this and do this. Okay, so here is the revised site plan. That if I bring that, sorry, that's going to be too large. So, and I'll call your attention to, whoops. So now the trees by the shore that were originally not to be removed, there's the one that's leaning that you are planning to remove. And do I understand you are not decided on whether the other one will be removed?
Correct. We have not decided that yet. So the reasoning for us bringing this obviously is as the project moves along and the house gets ready to get set, as we're doing a modular home, and we have a firm date that if we do not set by it, we're going to run into a lot of obstacles and lose a lot of financial monetary that we've spent into this. So what we had found is, obviously, like I said, the view is very obstructed by that, on top of the fact of the safety of the environment and just in general safety of any swimmers that might be there, or boaters or passerbys. So the hanging tree is more of the concern, but since we are at the commission, we're hoping that they can look at it and make a determination. However, there is a little bit of a hiccup because as I don't know if I can call on anybody, but I know he's actually in this meeting right now for another reason. But Ryan Crone is the one that I was planning on having do the work. And as he can possibly back me up and state on the record that once the house gets craned into place, it is going to be very physically impossible to do the work around with the tight property lines and possibly posing any further damage to any other environmental concerns.
Thank you. And just so that other commissioners are aware, as they may already be aware, Mr. Blanchette's landscape plan recommends, you can see here, 8 to 10 native shrubs and small trees. The reason for that revegetating, if the larger trees are cut down, there apparently are concerns about the erosion of that bank. It's a fairly steep bank, and revegetation would be important, if not crucial, to maintaining the integrity of the shoreline. And I believe that Mr. Blanchette also stressed the importance of having someone do this work who has some experience doing shoreline tree work, judging from that photograph that we saw, this job poses some unique challenges, or maybe not unique to shoreline locations, but
correct. And if I can add one more thing, Chairman, so I was talking to Daniel Blanchette a little bit more, and I don't know if people are familiar on the commission with this property, but the original house that was taken down before we bought the land was about 10 feet from the shoreline, and there was a septic which with about 30 feet or so, give or take. I don't know the exact measurements. So what we are doing is substantially better for the environment, and by moving the project back quite far up, so that there is limited to any, if at all, environmental breaches or concerns.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to bring up one more wrinkle here, I suppose, and commissioners are, if they've reviewed the materials, are aware of this. I have to do some other sharing here. Go to a different. There are NDDB issues related to this site, not so much the location of the proposed house, but the shoreline location. Those are, Margaret, help me out here. Are those here? I'm looking for the landscape house planning merged supplementary Zoom docs. Are they?
Are you by the, that's
I
by
think
the
it's in
discharge end?
version
I'm
2
looking
or
for
version
the
3 of the
Morehouse email, Margaret. Is that
It's in the supplemental Zoom docs,
the volume 2?
2 and/or 3.
That's important species on Little Pond or on the 5 Mile River?
State endangered species, water pennywort.
Yes.
Ah,
Oh,
missed
I see.
that.
Yes, right. I'm sorry. These are, I found them. Let's go back here. Okay. So this is an email from Mr. Moorhead, who is with the DEP, and he is informing us that that Hydrocotyle umbellata has been documented, which is a state endangered plant, has been documented along the shoreline very close to this site. And he is asking that Mr. Malo apply for NDDB determinations before
If I can interject on that real quick.
Sure.
We have, this is David Malo speaking for the
Yes.
record, but
Thank you.
we have applied for that as of Friday, and it
Right.
just has not come in at this point.
Okay. Okay. So my understanding, Margaret, is that the folks at NDDB can or at DEP, or wherever these people are, they may need a state permit for this, and we cannot disregard this their request for a determination. So we cannot act on this until we've received that determination. Is that right?
Margaret's muted.
Margaret, are you muted?
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I have a couple of suggestions or comments, and maybe David can help fill in. I suggest doing a site walk, and the next meeting is on April 8th, and I believe, David, did you say that the house is to be delivered the last week of April?
No, sorry again, David Malo speaking. The house is being delivered on April 14th and set to be craned into place on April 16th. So if I can make a recommendation, I don't know if this is something that I can do, but if there is a site walk to be in place, I don't know if we can obtain a special request to get that done sooner. Because
could you repeat the dates again? The 14th and the 18th? Is that what
the
you said?
14th and the 16th.
Thank you.
Yep. As you know, we have no leeway. I will add, we have no leeway with the modular home and the crane that is set in permanent stone, and there is just there's no moving around that, unfortunately.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner
I have a
Ober.
question about the species of concern. As I said, you might have heard, I was surprised that there was any kind of species that I had missed on the lists up in that area. It's an important environmental area, but what is the species, and would it be impacted by removing the tree? I can understand his concern. He's got a real tight timetable. We have to follow the rules.
Mm-hmm.
But he's asking for declaratory ruling to trim back 2 trees that are hanging over the. Gotta tell you, when I saw that first picture of the tree hanging over the water, I thought, oh, bass.
Yeah.
I'd like to go fishing there.
Cover,
But-
structure and cover.
But I can really appreciate his concern. He's building a home. He has an opportunity to take care of this. He wants to take care of it right. Would it impact the species, Margaret? Could we
I can't speak for the natural diversity database.
well, what is a species?
It's called water pennywort. It's in the carrot family. It looks like sort of like a nasturtium leaf, and it's
Yeah,
floating
I've
like.
seen those down further down the 5 Mile River.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know
Well,
what they were called, but they're like a hang on the bottom of the water.
yeah, I'm not sure that that's the same plant, but this one's
Same
also uh, sort of facing another challenge in the pond in that the Lake Association has gotten a grant to herbicide Little Pond this summer. And so the NDDB is trying to work with them to find a way that they can kill about 10 acres of milfoil over near the boat launch while not killing the water pennywort on this side of the pond.
Yeah, I can appreciate that as a far greater threat to the species than what neighbor wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
If I may, Chair.
Please.
Again, David Melo speaking. As I've discussed with the experts that I've pulled in on this, and one being Daniel Blanchette, is like I said earlier in my comments, if the tree falls into the water, it is definitely going to disturb that. So I understand that the town of Thompson may not be able to make a decision for the diversity department of the state. However, I can assure you that once that tree falls in there, it is going to be a lot different and change the scope of what it can do to the environment. So I don't know if there is any suggestion that we can, whether we cut it completely down or be able to trim it back or something like that.
Trees fall into the rivers all the time, and I can appreciate your concern. You're moving in, you want to have it right and have it done. And that's not urgent. Making sure that we don't get the state upset at us for not following their suggestions. I've seen the species. It's a curious little animal. It's like a translucent sponge on the bottom of the pond. And it's the same river, Margaret, the 5 Mile. I've seen it down by the dam at Quinnebog.
I've got a couple of questions for Mr. Melo. Just the month of the 14th and the 16th is, you're talking April or March?
April.
So it's April 14th and 16th are the delivery and dates to put the house in?
That is correct.
Place, April. Okay. And so this site walk we were talking about doing might be on March 22nd, and then the meeting is on April 8th.
Well, that would work.
Mm-hmm.
March 22nd.
And also, I think the plan might have been modified a little bit, Charlie, since David first submitted it. It showed, as he put it, like kind of a kid's cartoon of trimming the tree. But now, David, you no longer offering to prune the big tree that's hanging over. And what would be left of the stump, if anything?
So as far as, again, David Melo speaking, as far as the tree trunk, I mean, that is still something that I have to discuss with Ryan himself. If there's something that the town of Thompson suggests, I'm open to, moving this project along as we discussed. But originally I was planning on leaving a couple feet of the stump of the tree, but Daniel Blanchette basically had said if we leave the other tree, it would help the erosion, and planting additional, I guess, trees or bushes or something along the landscape plan of what we have there will help the erosion just as much. So that tree taking completely out and just leaving the root system would not really affect anything. So we went with that plan.
So what would be left of the stump, if anything? Like just cut down to
Probably,
the ground?
yeah, probably just on that one, probably ground.
You want to grind the stump on the bank?
No, level with the ground.
Level.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Ogre.
to the applicant, David, if you were listening a while ago, you heard that we had a lot of discussion about grinding stumps close to the river, close to the stream. And if you're not going to grind it, it's a lot less of an issue for us. And you're the landowner, you own the land, you have rights to manage it. So a declaratory ruling would be completely
To be clear, Charlie, this is not a declaratory ruling. It's a modification of
an application.
Yeah, it's a modification. It's
Okay.
not so we can't handle it in quite the same way.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that. The timeline. Well, we still have to find out what the state wants us to do about that anemone or whatever that thing is that's on the bottom of the lake. I think it would be remarkable if they can respond quickly. You're asking if you're asking to cut down trees at ground level and not disturb the soil around the wetlands, then everything else that he's already asked to do on the property has been approved. And if he's cutting it off at ground level and not disturbing the wetlands or the soil, I don't see how that becomes an issue for anybody.
I'll point out
before.
I'm sorry, Charlie. This is Chairman Dustin again. I'll point out that this is a modification of a plan that originally stipulated that these shoreline trees would not be cut down. So a question I would have for Mr. Malo is, are you committed to following Daniel's recommendation for landscaping the site, given the concerns about bank erosion that would be heightened if these trees were removed?
That is correct. As far as his plan to the T, it depends on the layout and everything like that, but that is the initial plan. There may be some revisions of that, but the 8 to 10 trees, I can't sit here and say on the record that I'm going to get a tape measure and put them, exactly in the exact spots that he put them there. But yes, that is the plan.
Right. So I think it would be a concern of the commission that bank erosion be mitigated if in the absence of those trees, which as Daniel points out in his note, are doing a whole lot to hold that bank together currently. Margaret, when could we realistically expect an NDDB review to be completed?
I can't speak for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you might want to try to schedule the site walk, because every time you do a site walk, everything seems a lot clearer.
Yes, I agree. I think that is so. The NDDB determination has been applied for, as Mr. Miller mentioned, and I believe that Daniel Blanchett has submitted his note and plan along with that application. So they have all sides of this story. All we can do is wait to hear from them. In the meantime, we can see the site, and that might enable us to make a more informed decision in time for this work to proceed, without Mr. Malo being incommoded without his having a modular house and a crane and no place to put him.
Mr. Chair, you're talking about having the sidewalk on the 22nd of March?
The date that Margaret was proposing was the 22nd. Yeah,
That's Saturday, the 22nd. At what
that's
time?
right. Our other commissioners, would we have a quorum if we had a special meeting that day? I know I can make it that day.
Yeah, I can make it so far.
We were thinking of 9 o'clock.
Okay.
since we have more daylight now.
And
Um,
what date? What's the date again?
22nd of March.
22nd of March, Saturday at 9 o'clock. Commissioner O'Neill, are you still with us, or you
I'm
you don't
here.
get till April?
Yeah, I'll be here, but I'm not sure that date, but certainly if I was available, I'd try. Sounds like
I would like to know something more about that species. So if Margaret, let me know the name of it, I'll look it up, but I
It's
think
in
that's
the,
truly
it's in an
aquatic life
email.
cycle.
The
Yeah.
name of it's in the supplementary Zoom docs.
Yeah,
Okay,
Charlie,
I've got that.
yeah, if you
Yeah, I
look
think
at the
so.
yeah, in the email from the NDDB person.
So do you need to know if any other commissioners can attend?
Yes, Commissioner Corso, Commissioner Langer, are you able to attend?
Yes.
Thank you.
I will be flying in the night before, so as long as my travel is not interrupted,
Okay.
you can attend.
And are you flying in from Europe or anything? Are you going to be jet lagged?
No, Florida should be simple.
Okay. All right then. So we'll hold this application over pending a site walk, and hopefully we can make some progress with it at our next regular meeting in time for Mr. Melo to proceed with the work he would like to have done.
Thank
If
you very
that-
much.
That looks like a good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Next on
You
the
bet.
agenda are permit extensions or changes, of which there are none. The next item on the agenda are active violations and pending enforcement actions, of which we have one. This is VIOL 25007, Ryan Crone, 41 Hill Road, map 128, map 14, lot 1. This is a show cause hearing for material deposited in wetlands without a permit. So I need to,
Hi, Ryan Crone here.
hello, Ryan. Welcome. Thank you for
How are ya?
joining.
Yep.
Are you seeing supplemental Zoom docs, everyone out there?
No.
Am I-
Nothing's on the screen now.
Nothing's on the screen now. Okay. Let me, I want this. So nothing is being shared. Okay. So these are supplemental Zoom docs, volume 2, sorry. And then I need to do some screen sharing. And I will do that this way. Okay. Don't want to minimize this for now. You go away. And I want to, I think what we want is page 10. Okay. Okay. This is our enforcement officer's report. So, Mr. Crone, are you, or I don't know if you have anyone with you. The floor is yours to explain to us what's going on here and what you plan to do.
Okay. So I have done work for David Malo, and I do have Sean Copeland here as well.
Yes.
I have been since my meeting with Margaret and been notified of the violations. There is a utility road, if you're looking at our property from the road, to the left of the house that goes down bottom to a parking area and an area for my trucks for the tree service I've been operating since August of 2011. So a lot of what you see had been pre-existing there. I'm gonna guess 30 years ago, probably when I was about 4 years old. So my knowledge of some of what is existing is a little unknown. As far as the materials that have been dumped down there, we have certainly contributed to that. Some of that was already pre-existing. Since then, I have talked to a couple contractors. A lot of this I can potentially do myself, but trying to get rid of that material, kind of reset exactly where the wetland parameters are, and just try to correct that area. And I'm not sure if there's any. I guess I'm not exactly sure on what the end all be all expectation on our end is, but we're willing to work with you, however, to correct what has been done recently and what was pre-existing to just recorrect the area and try to make things right.
Thank you. Thank you for
So,
your openness.
And
And your
guys,
willingness to work with us. Thank you.
and guys, Sean Copeland, Copeland Builders.
Sean,
If
yes,
I can
please.
add a little bit to Ryan's, I'm working with Ryan on this. He's thinking about doing a future project and just kind of pulled me in to help out. So, I read that report. Obviously, some fair points that, yeah, we're going to get the area delineated, get a silt fence put in. I think Ryan's planning on keeping that in permanently. Obviously put some hay bales, get them all staked down around the additional materials that got put in, get those pulled out, get them beyond the silt fence. And then I know Ryan's hoping to get back to operating as normal like he has for the last, again, 20 years. And one thing that I would like to have the commission be aware of is the way this whole thing got even brought up is Ryan was trying to do the right thing to invite the zoning officer over to his property to look at a future building. This wasn't a neighbor calling in, and happened to find out he was in violation that day, which I, you know, yeah. So
so in short, I've tried for the last 3-4 years to get my hands on a shop, whether I've bought an existing rental property that's got some extra property I can put up a shop for myself and kind of get out of that residential area. I was under contract for a shop on Route 12. I had easily 10 grand into that contract and was lied to about some dirty dirt there. And since then, the state got involved in that and kiboshed that entire deal. So I have been trying to kind of move out and move to an actual shop for us. But since things have gotten very, very expensive, and I've had a couple of just bad experiences trying to get that to happen. Now, pretty much all I can afford and try to figure out how to do is putting up 2 Connex boxes and a roof. So essentially, I'm not, working on my trucks in the, mud and stone. And I'd like to have like a cleaner, consolidated area somewhere on the property if it's possible. That was my main question of something I could do down below there without being too invasive and without, excuse my French, but pissing off the neighbors. And which I am close with all of my neighbors. I do have Michael Meehan, who lives directly behind me, and then Jared Meehan, who lives next to him. And I've talked to them over the past probably 2 years about putting up a building, just trying to be neighborly and, kind of feeling out their expectations to do things right by them. And now I'm back to trying to do things right by the town, but had some extra violations and info thrown my way. So I've got to correct this first and then hopefully go back to being able to put up a little something for the time being while I can save up and hopefully in future years have a shop that's totally separate in a commercial area.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So as I understand it, and Margaret, I'm always saying, correct me if I'm wrong, and I probably am wrong most of the time. The road to compliance here is fairly straightforward. We need erosion and sediment controls. We need a site plan. This is all spelled out in your order to correct.
Yes.
And we need an application for an IWA, an inland wetlands permit to ensure present and future compliance and to demarcate the upland review area so that when you're building your garage, everything is above board there, and a wetlands restoration plan. And Mr. Copeland, are you helping with that, with the restoration effort? Am I?
Yep. Yes, I will be.
Okay. And if once we have those, we can consider lifting the cease and desist order. And my understanding is as well is that the cease and desist order does not prevent you from continuing to operate your business. It just means no dumping material in wetlands or any disturbance within 100 feet.
Yes, and I've shared that with my crews to let them know that that area is off limits.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Very good.
and I've been working with I called Killingly Engineering Associates. I have not gotten a date yet, but looking to get everything. I had most of it properly marked, but now given the violation, I'd like to have it remarked and know exactly what limits I've got to work with and what will need to be cleaned out and corrected. And then hopefully go back to the idea of putting up just a small kind of makeshift shop with I wanted to do 2 Connex boxes with a roof connecting the two on like a monolithic slab. Not something I want to have permanently, but like I said, things have gotten very, very expensive. And with my previous attempts at getting shops in commercial areas, getting kiboshed due to regulations or, well, being lied to. Hopefully I can do that one day, but at the moment it's just not in our sights.
Okay. And
May I make
so
a
commissioners,
sidebar, Mr. Chairman?
please, Commissioner Obert, go ahead.
Commercial properties, there's a building on Route 193 in Thompson Hill between the crossroads and the well driller.
Yes.
It lists as for rent, but they've had a steady stream of people through there, and it may be an opportunity, just a thought. I also work with the Economic Development Commission, and I connect things.
Okay. Charlie, can you just reiterate the location of that?
It's on Route 193, and it's just north of the crossroads, just after you get down the hill. O'Leary Construction, and then just beyond that, it'll be on the right-hand side.
I think it
Farwell
was,
Road.
Oh,
I
is that
think it's
the propane? Is that the propane building?
Yeah.
yeah,
No.
I think
Commissioner
that, I
Morale.
think that,
No, there's another one.
no,
I
it
don't
used
think
to
this
be,
is a propane. This is
it
right
used
on
to
the
be-
road, and there's another building in the back.
One at a
it
time.
used to be a propane building. I think that might be a questionable area.
I looked
Okay,
at that.
I didn't know it was propane in there ever since I lived here in 2005.
Possibly,
If I can
possibly oil as
interrupt,
well.
Please.
I looked at that back in 2020 and 2021. That area will not work for us. The ceiling height and infrastructure there will not work for the size of my trucks.
Well, hopefully you can proceed with your plan for this site.
Yeah.
For
luck.
those of you viewing, these are the satellite. These show the wetlands in the area, and I take it that the utility road is in here.
Yes, you're correct.
So, Margaret, do you think another site walk would be in order so that we can see what's
Yes,
happening?
I was
Okay.
hoping that after the 9 o'clock David Malo site walk, everyone could go to this place.
We could do a double header. Yes. Okay.
Works for me.
That makes sense if other commissioners are agreeable to that. Mr. Crone, Mr. Copeland, and I don't, if you could both be present, are you available on the 22nd of March? It's a Saturday, maybe at 10:30 or so.
Let me take a look.
Okay.
I'm checking as well.
I think we could get there closer to 10. David
Okay.
Malo's site is really pretty small, and once you've been there for 5 or 10 minutes, I think you'll have seen everything there is to see.
You get the drift. Okay.
Actually, can I ask one question?
Sure, please.
So I've done some of the tree work over there for David Malo on his lot. Is that something that I should try to attend just so I'm in the loop with everybody if we do potentially go down there to do anything with that tree, the tree that's leaning into the water?
Probably that I don't think that would be necessary. For these
Okay.
site walks, all the commissioners are able to do essentially is look at the site.
Okay.
And we may have questions for the applicant, but we aren't permitted to discuss strategies for getting the work done or anything.
Oh, okay. So, okay.
Because we're gathering information to make informed decisions about whether to permit the work to be done. So it's
Okay.
you needn't be there, but thank you for offering.
Okay.
So in that case, if the 22nd does work for you, and I don't know if you want anyone from Killingly Engineering to join us as well, and if it works for us, it seems to be an appropriate next step. And as you proceed to address those items spelled out in Margaret's order to correct, and then hopefully we can sooner rather than later lift this cease and desist order so you can proceed with the rest of your plans.
Do you guys have any concerns if Killingly gets this site marked out, which honestly they're very busy right now. I'm not sure if they'll have time prior. Do you have any concern with us setting the silt fence in along those marks like I normally would on my job sites prior to that site walk? Is that an issue for you guys?
Margaret, what do you
think
think
you
about?
could, I think you might want to
I-
hold off on installing silt fence because it involves a little bit of digging. Um,
But it doesn't change what
I think
we have to
if you
do.
wanted to double stake some hay bales around the toe of the recently deposited woody debris,
Okay.
you could do that.
Well,
I appreciate the offer. I'm not sure that the idea of permanently installing silt fences is necessarily desirable because it can be a barrier for things like turtles and probably isn't hopefully needed permanently per se. But we'll probably have a much better idea about how to answer all those questions after the site walk. And
Okay.
then we could bring this up again at the April 8th meeting.
Okay.
Good.
So
All
I
right.
think we could easily get there, 9:45 or 10 o'clock.
Okay.
I'll be
All
there
right.
at 9.
Okay.
So we look forward to carrying on with this and getting everything where it should be.
Okay.
And thank you for your willingness to work with us on that. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. This brings us now to other business. The first up is revising regulations to allow for peer review. And now I'll have to stop sharing and go back to my. Actually, it's going to all be in the same place. Okay, let's see. So. These are, I'm going to go to 160. All right, is everybody seeing this? You've seen it before, so Margaret, I think the only thing that has changed, the commission has already voted to bring this to a public hearing and to send it off to DEEP. So the train, the amendment train has left the station, so to speak. But there's is the only change the effective date? So I guess what I'm asking is this agenda item, is this informational, do you think, for commission members, or is there any action we need to take on this?
Let me see. We just wanted to make sure the commission realized that the effective date is going to be June 1st. And it may not be something that anybody was paying too much attention to, but I just wanted to make sure that the commission's eyes saw this revision before it goes to the state.
Right.
And we changed the page numbers on the first 2 pages.
I took these Roman numerals out. So do
That's
commission
it.
members,
Just the effective date and the page numbers on the first 2 pages, that the second and third page, not the cover sheet. So, or, well, in any case, that's all it is.
all right. So I think I'm safe in asking commission members if they have any questions or concerns at this stage that that they would like to voice, or I don't think we need to reapprove these changes at this, or we're not approving them yet until we've held the public hearing, but I don't think there's anything more we need to do other than to be aware. And if anybody sees a problem with this effective date or with the removal of the first 2 page numbers, speak now. I
Don't
take that as a
remember
no.
seeing page numbers at that, but I thought you're correct. What you said a few minutes ago, we had approved the changes primarily for the fee. But if a small amount of housekeeping was noticed as the final draft was being dusted off, then fine.
Okay. Yeah, there's nothing substantive. What you're looking at now is the so-called black line version. This is what the regulations will look like now with the fee schedule as an appendix. And again, the reasons for this are that it makes the fee schedule more accessible. It's no longer buried in the main body of the regulations, and it facilitates changes to the fee schedule, which might need to be made more often than we want to revise the regulations themselves.
Will any changes to the fee schedule also involve a public meeting?
I believe not, Margaret. Didn't the town attorney indicate that if they're appearing in an appendix
It could certainly be discussed at a meeting, but it wouldn't trigger the requirement for a public hearing.
Okay.
Okay, good. Let's move on now to members' review of IWC bylaws prior to April meeting. I'm not going to. You'll all recall that the April meeting April is the bylaw month, and I say we always. I've only been doing this for 2 years, but we get to that, and none of us can think of any changes we might want to make to the bylaws. But in this case, the bylaws, Margaret has furnished them here for you in the. Sorry, I'm lost control of my screen. In the Zoom docs, and they're also, of course, always there on the website. So I'm as teacher that I am giving you all homework and asking you to take a look at the bylaws if you would, and to consider any changes to those that you might want to propose. It's not a long read. I think this is still these are the regs. And here are the bylaws. So they begin on page 204 and they go to page 210. So any questions about that process? None. And I myself will have to reread, I think, the bylaws to familiarize myself with what it takes to make any changes to the bylaws. I think it's just it's just the emotion and a vote. But, all right, I take that memo as read. Policy statement regarding how long wetlands delineations are valid. This is it right here. This is Margaret's draft statement. We, as you may recall, this was last discussed at our November 12th, 2024 meeting. We were there was some back and forth about what the period should be. The town attorney has recommended 10 years because it corresponds with the what we might call the permit life. That is the period during which a permit would ordinarily be valid. I think with extensions. Are there any questions about this? I think Margaret and I have discussed it. It seems like a good idea that we put something like this in place, given the situations that we're running into with sites where there have been wetlands historically, but where new wetlands may have been created, and we need a more we need an updated delineation. We can't rely on necessarily what was done long ago. So, Margaret, the action here that's required of the commission would be to vote to adopt this policy statement?
Yes.
Yes.
And
Do
they
I
could
have a
state,
motion?
if they choose to do so, they could please state a reason why they're voting that way.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt this policy statement regarding how long wetlands delineations are deemed to be valid by the Thompson Inland Wetlands Commission? And that period would be 10 years following the date that the delineation was performed in the field.
I make a motion to adopt a duration of 10 years for a wetland delineation.
Thank you, Commissioner Morano. Can you tell us why?
Because because it would be able to address changes that happen over a course of time due to natural or artificial interference.
Thank you. Well put. Do I have a second on that motion?
Commissioner Langer will second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Langer. Can you give us your reasons for doing so?
Clear communication is always good and helps to ensure that projects move forward and everyone's on the same page. And this is just one more tool that we have available to us and to help all the people that submit and or come to us for assistance and guidance. Give us a tool to use and help them.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion?
Yes. Would this attach to the application that it relates to, because it's a 10-year period of time? And it's it inserts into the application process.
That's a good question, Commissioner Robert. Margaret, what do we do with policy statements? Where do they live, and do we?
They live on the website and in our records. And it's typically there so that when new applicants come in and they've got a plan that dates back to 1980s, that you can ask them to update the delineation. I wasn't thinking of attaching it to any permits at this time.
It seems to me that it is triggered by the application for the permit. If there is any kind of delineation that's requested, in essence, what we're doing is we're putting an end to the grandfather clause. We're saying the laws have changed, we're up to date, and we're making sure that everything that moves forward shows what's going on in this town. That's great. I like that. I think it is part of the application, but it's part of what we are. It's almost part of a mission statement for the Inland Wetlands Commission.
Chair.
Keeping things current.
Commissioner O'Neill. Yeah, I think I agree, Commissioner Obert, that it could have many uses. Commissioner O'Neill.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think we should you can refer to this. I would take it as a standard operating procedure or memorializing it in some way, and it creates certainty for the community as well as developers and others as to the duration. So it's contract certainty is something that we want. Ambiguity is rift with pitfalls. So that's why I would recommend we do that.
Thank you. Thank you. I concur with my fellow commissioners. I think that wetlands are fluid, if you'll pardon my saying so. They are changeable things, and I think it is important that we be in a position that we record those changes, and I think, again, I think maybe it was Commissioner Morano who pointed out that wetlands are both artificial and they are created, and they can be created, if not overnight, in a relatively brief period of time. And that changes the configuration, and it certainly affects some of the decisions that we might be asked to make.
I got one thing to add, I guess, which is that these policy statements from time to time would be brought back before you by your wetlands agent to have you basically uphold and ratify them. And so from time to time, every 5 years or so, or at any given date, whoever's on the commission at the time can be reminded about the policy statement and ratify it again. And so it can have multiple effective dates. It can say first effective date, March 11th, 2025, and ratified on March 11th of 2030, etc.
Right.
To keep it in people's fresh in their minds.
So does that mean that we need a policy statement regarding how long policy statements are valid?
No.
Chair, question here.
Yes, Commissioner O'Neill.
Yes, I would say this should be used as the bedrock of our new policies and procedures manual, or PPM, that and in its application and the duration and administration should incorporate that element of how long it is and where it's kept. So, hey, look, I've got a policies and procedures manual in my company. It's 150 pages. And it goes into all this stuff, like, how do you do that? Well, this is the policy. We review it, and it's approved, and it's not an arbitrary thing. And again, it goes to certainty for administration of any organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that our enforcement officer would like to work towards something like that would also be of helpful to citizens and what they need.
Keep this in the back of my thinking when I reread the bylaws, because it's our policy, part of what we're doing as a board.
Yes,
as a commission.
Right.
Wonderful.
Well, maybe we can see if it belongs somehow attached to the bylaws, or just how it fits in with the bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
We'll work on that when we're not working on other things. So we have a motion.
Agreement that this is a good idea. We're taking a vote.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Any abstentions? If not, then this policy statement is adopted. Citizens' comments. If we still have citizens with us, you're welcome to. I know Ms. Clark was here. Anyone else is welcome to share any comments at this point in the proceedings. If not, then we'll go to budget and expenditures report. Commissioner Langer, are you
I'm here. I am here. I want to thank Margaret for all of her assistance, as well as any other commissioners that covered me during my unscheduled absence last month. With that, Margaret, I said that I would call you, but I have not had the chance to do that as the follow-up to the budget meetings. Is there anything that would be important enough to share at this time?
No, I don't think there's anything unusual about this monthly report.
No.
Okay. All of our line items continue to remain in their normal percentages of use, and again, the only one that continues to be out of percentage of adjustment is the office supplies, and we know that's due to the cell phones, which we have tried to accomplish and resolve going into the next budget.
Thank you very much for your oversight.
Do we have any word on the finance Board of Finance review of our budget requests?
It went fine, and we have, they're not done making their decisions yet.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Good. The wetlands agent report. I think we've touched on everything, Margaret, haven't we? That was
everything.
Everything and then some. We have no correspondence to review or discuss. No Mylars have been signed or need to be signed. Comments by commissioners about anything. I never know what that's supposed to cover. There have been, I apologize, I like to keep these things under 2 hours. We're a little bit over, but that doesn't mean that commissioners shouldn't feel free to share any comments they might have.
I believe that the things we took time to talk about were important, and they were important to put on the record as well.
Yes.
We got a difficult job, and we're all volunteers. So, well, with the exception of Margaret and Gloria, but
they're worth every penny.
Twice that. I've put in that budget request, and they keep laughing at it. But yeah, we're trying to learn more. We're trying to do the right thing for the community and for the people that live and work here. So I'm glad that we're able to take the time to go out and look at these sites, and we're able to make decisions that I believe most of the decisions have been as favorable to the applicant as they have been, they've just been a little bit of harder work in some cases than they were used to.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
I guess I have one last parting comment, which is just to remind everyone that the hearing for the regulations revision is on April 22nd, which is a Tuesday at 7 o'clock, and it's a live hearing in the Sinay community room.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Commissioner Langer, I just wanted to share that in my day-to-day work, there are many times that I get caught up in a lot of this permitting application process. Even though I've been doing it for 40 years, every town is different. Every municipality can be different. And I have seen on occasion that some municipalities put together a little flow chart that kind of gives you an overview of time and the process and the steps that take place. Especially when it's a very extended time frame, and it helps to plan and organize all your actions that need to take place. So I'm not sure if other commissioners have seen those in their day-to-day life and application. Just might be something that we might consider, since most of the applicants usually don't spend much time talking to commissions or spend a lot of their time filling out applications and or living through this process that several of us live through daily.
Thank you. Thank you. We saw an example of that tonight. That it would be, I think, helpful to a lot of people to understand what has to happen when and why it can't happen now.
Yeah. What time is that meeting on the 22nd?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Thank you.
And I did ask Gloria today to check her calendar to see if she can be the recording secretary at that meeting, his public hearing.
Thanks. I got it.
Thank you.
Thanks all for.
If there are no more comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Ober, second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Good night.
Who would be opposed? Good night, everyone. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night and thank you.
Goodbye.